Awesome. Okay. So we are all part of the 21-day cleanse. Thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to have you all here. You should have received all of your materials in my client portal called Practice Better. If you're here, you should have that. You should have been able to see all the different things that were inside that file. You should have received a guidebook, meal plan and recipes, a daily protocol to-do list, a workbook, and a toxin reduction and elimination list. Now, I want to talk just a little bit about level of commitment, because sometimes when you sign up for something, you're like, oh, I'm totally going to do that. And then you get in here and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just sign up for? This seems really hard and I'm overwhelmed. I want to tell you that you can do this at whatever level feels comfortable for you. So what we're really hoping to do is for you to see changes, for you to experience changes. And so for some of you, you might be, coffee might be your lifeline. And I've just come into your life and said, well, we're not going to do coffee. And that might feel like really overwhelming. And at the end, I'll talk about, like, if you choose to give up coffee, some coffee substitutes, so you have that. But just understand, like, for some people, it will be an education about how to improve your health, what your body is really telling you. There's a really important exercise that I want you to complete either today or tomorrow. And that is in your list of materials, there was something called the workbook. And the workbook is an inventory. Now, in order for us to understand what changes you're going to be making over the next 3 weeks, we have to take an inventory of what is happening right now. If you don't take the time to do that, you're not going to get to see and catalog those changes. It's really important for you to understand what actually shifted and changed. I don't want you to do it in a place, sitting in a place of judgment of where you're starting. I want you to just take an inventory so that you understand, okay, this is the beginning. And I want you to measure something. And it doesn't have to be with a tape measure. It can be with a piece of string. And it could be your arm, it could be your ankle, it could be your leg, it could be your middle, it could be your neck, whatever it is, measure something. Because when we see that data change, especially what we're going to be doing inside this 21 days is reducing the amount of foods that are causing inflammation in the body. And when we pull those foods out of the diet for a period of time, we bring that inflammation down, and our body, our actual cells, the cells that we're made up of, have a different response. So we get to see and experience that change. And you might be asking yourself, well, really, 3 weeks, am I really going to see that big of a difference? I have seen crazy things happen in 3 weeks, and it just depends on what you came into the program with. So for some of you, you might already be in a really healthy place. That's awesome. And for some of you, you might be coming from a place that's less healthy, and that's okay. So what we're really trying to see is, like, what changes can you make within your health picture? Now, there's going to be support throughout this whole 3 weeks. I will be in that feed. So inside of the Client Better, the Practice Better client portal, there's a tab at the top where you got your materials and you got this appointment today. There's a tab at the top called Feed, and that is where you can go in and post any questions. I will be in there at least twice a day, first thing in the morning and kind of later in the afternoon. So you can ask questions along the way if you need more support or something doesn't, like, Andrea, I'm experiencing this. Don't be surprised, because when some of the things that can happen, and it's inside your guidebook, we'll talk about that in just a second. Some of the things that you might have happen, it's part of your detoxing. I have many tricks up my sleeve to make you more comfortable. So I know that Tim, that's our pastor at Branches, and he talked about this today, and he's like, oh, you're going to be miserable for the first 3 days. It's like, maybe not. So it just depends. Some of you are coming in with what I call the rolling carry-on. You have very little toxicity and inflammation, and others of us, we're carrying in that 20-piece luggage set, and we've got a lot of things to unpack. And it's okay, whatever you're coming with, like, we will get you there. And this might just be the beginning of pulling that layer off. So the first thing I want to point out is the guidebook. The guidebook is really, like, the key and the most important. And I'm going to share my screen so we can go over that. Okay. So the guidebook is the one that had the very beginning with these purple vegetables on it. And the most important pages inside the guidebook, there are a couple. The first one is page 14. And why is page 14 important? Because there are some people in this group that like to follow the rules, and there are other people who do not. And so this is the page for the rebels. So there are people who love to have everything told to them, do this, do this, do this, do this. That's what the recipes and the menu plan and all of that is for. If you are not that person, that's not your personality, please don't go get all of those things and then try to make that food and then feel frustrated that that's not your style of eating. What I want you to focus on here is this food list. This is the foods you can enjoy during the cleanse. And then these are the foods we're avoiding during the cleanse. And that's pages 14 and 15. So you can, and I tell people, either take a screenshot of this or print out those 2 pages. If you don't want to print out the whole book, those 2 pages would be important for you to print out. Now, in the second week, we take away animal protein, and we really are kind of leaning into a more vegan style dinner or a diet. Now, before you have a freak out and you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to take my protein away. There are some situations where that might not be applicable. If you have a physical labor job, if you are an athlete, if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes where you are using insulin, then you're going to want to keep some protein in. And I would tell you, be vegan by day and have your protein at night. Okay. If you have questions about this food list, it's not comprehensive. I don't list off every single little thing in here. So if there's something that you're like, I don't know if I can have that or not, ask on this call or put it over that question over into the feed, and I'm happy to answer that for you. This isn't exhaustive by any means. So, you can ask those questions if you need clarification. The big ones that I want you to pay attention to on the don't eat list, there are some exceptions. So again, with the protein, I gave you the exceptions for that. The second thing would be the nightshades. If you're someone who has joint pain or rheumatoid arthritis or any sort of arthritic issues, then you are going to want to make sure that you remove those nightshades from your list. If you are someone who does not have those issues, you have no history of joint pain, rheumatoid arthritis, or any arthritic tendencies, if for some reason you want to have tomatoes on your salad, that's fine. If you feel like you want to have a regular potato, okay. Really want to remove the nightshades for those people in that category. But I'm not opposed to people who are not using the recipes to go ahead and put those in if that's not you. A question that will come up often is why am I taking out the fermented foods? I thought fermented foods were good for me. Yes, but one of the things that we're doing or that could potentially be addressed, at least in the beginning stages of this, is if any of you have any sort of yeast or fungal overgrowth, we don't want to have those fermented foods in there because sometimes they can exacerbate that particular issue. So by taking them out, we kind of are addressing that along the way. Okay. Before I move on, anything in the guidebook that you have questions about, and you can unmute yourself and ask those now about the foods. All right, I'm not seeing any questions right this minute, but I'm just going to go over the 3 phases. And then if you have a question, interrupt me. So there are 3 phases to this program, 3 weeks, week 1, week 2, and week 3, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's a very fancy name. The first week is preparation and elimination. So we're really going to get into the preparation and eliminating out all the things that are causing us issues. That's the first week. In the second week, we really start pushing on some detoxification pathways, and we deepen that, the cleansing. And you're asking yourself, well, why would I take those proteins away? How does that deepen the cleansing? When our body is focused on digesting food, it doesn't focus on healing and cleansing. So protein, animal proteins, require more of us digestively. So it's not that they're necessarily bad. I don't want you to think that that's what I'm saying. I actually would never tell anybody to go on a vegan diet 100% of the time. I think we need those amino acids in some form. And I'm also not saying if you're vegan and you're here and you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't eat animal protein. That's fine too, but there's things that you need to do to kind of cover that off. But we take that week to just give our body a digestive break. So that's what we're doing in that second week. And you can do anything for 7 days. You can do anything for 7 days. This is not a life sentence, it's 7 days. And then the last phase, the third week, we bring some of those things back and we see how our body responds. So we really have an understanding of what foods are really good for us personally and what foods are not good for us. And some of you may or may not have that or already have a good understanding of that. And for some of you, that could be a new experience. So when we take those things out, we're kind of like clearing the deck, and then we'll have an opportunity to bring them back. Really important to give I do provide snacks inside the recipes, but if you can, really focus on trying to get that 3 hours or 4 hours between each main meal. The importance of that is because you have an internal housekeeper. She's called your migrating motor complex, and she can't work when you're eating. So when we're constantly eating all the time, like snack, that migrating motor complex gets compromised, and it can then lead to some downstream effects that we don't want to have happen. So by starting to practice this, that will enable that to happen. And again, get this sweeping, get that cleaning out of our digestive system. The other thing I want to make sure that you do, and this is something, if you know my kids, they will be able to tell you the stories about this, is that I want you to make sure that you are always eating sitting down. And the only thing you're doing while you're eating is eating. So you're not on your computer, you're not checking your phone, you're not doing anything. It's you and your food for the next 21 days, only for that while you're eating. Now, what you do outside of that, 10 minutes, can you give me 10 minutes 3 times a day? Just you and your food. And of course, pleasant conversation is fine. What can happen? What might you feel in that first week when you start to pull all these foods out? Some of the things, especially the stimulants like coffee, there are toxic withdrawals that we may have as our body has gotten used to it. So don't be surprised if you do get a headache or you don't feel great and I almost think it's kind of feels like you're getting a cold that never comes. Sometimes people will experience some stomach cramping, lightheadedness. You might feel a little bit more empty stomach. You might be moody or more irritable. Warn your families and friends. You might feel a little bit tired in that first week as your body's starting to adjust, and you might feel bloated, and that will pass. So if for some reason you have any of these types of detoxing symptoms or something else is going on, please go into the feed and ask me for support. Say, I'm experiencing detoxing symptoms and I can't do my job because I have a raging headache. What can I do? I have, like I said, tricks and tips that I can share with you to make you more comfortable while we're kind of walking that out. Now, don't worry about weeks 2 and 3 right now. Just focus on week 1. Okay, that's all I want you to focus on. Focus on week 1. Next Sunday, we'll talk about week 2. Read about it on that Sunday. And then when we hop on the call for this same thing, we'll go over what's going to come up for that next week. So this week, just really focus on that week 1. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this and then open up. Does anybody have any questions at this point? No? Okay. So the other thing that I want to make sure that we're doing, and I'm going to screen share again, is the client workbook. So this is what I was talking about before, where you absolutely do not need to weigh yourself. I don't care if that's not your measurement, that's okay. Just give yourself an energy score. How energetic are you feeling? This is your own scale. It doesn't matter. You're not comparing it. Nobody is going to see this except for you. You do not have to put these measurements in. If that doesn't feel comfortable to you, don't do that. Use something else. Use a piece of yarn or a string and use that as your way of measuring. But here, this toxicity and inflammation quiz, this is the one that I think is really important to take, because what you will forget in 3 weeks where you've come from, and people are shocked by the things that change in this space. So put in here and fill that out so you have that for yourself. And like I said, do it today or tomorrow, okay? The meal plan and the recipes, some of the recipes are for a single person. So like the smoothies, that makes one, and it says serving size on it. And there are other meals in the meal plan that make for 4. So depending on the number of people you're cooking for, and like if you're a single person and this is just for you, you're going to have a little bit of extra food, and that can either be put into the freezer for after the cleanse, or you can, double up, or you could say, well, I'm not going to make these 2 recipes because I have enough that it can stretch it over a period of time. So be thoughtful about that when you're planning your recipes and looking at the recipes, because that grocery list is for if you were to make every recipe in the quantity that it serves. Okay. I see some questions coming in, and I will get to those in just 2 seconds. Now there's a daily protocol sheet, and that's like your daily to-do list. That's a suggestion. This is just to give you an idea of what it could look like for yourself. You can, make that look however you want. Again, these are things to help guide you towards a different health experience. That doesn't mean that you have to do it to the letter of the law. So figure out for yourself what your level of commitment is. Can I be all in 100% because I have the time, energy to do it? Great. If you're like, I have a job, I have kids, I have to drive people to soccer, I have a XYZ, I have 0 time margin and time, then, I can only do the 70%. Well, then know that going in so that you're not beating yourself up halfway through and saying, oh, I wish I would have done more. It's like, you have to commit at the level that you can commit to. And every person here has their own version of what 100% looks like. Okay. So, and your 100% from day to day is going to look different. And what I mean by that is that some days you're going to get up and you're going to feel fantastic and you can take on the world, and other days you might not feel so good. And that's okay. That's okay. There is a toxin reduction sheet in there where it lists off different techniques and different things that you can try at home to help move and mobilize those toxins out. The one that I am super, super like, yes, pretty much good for everybody is the Epsom salt bath. If you don't feel awesome, get in an Epsom salt bath. And even if you can't do a full bath and you're like, I got a bathtub that's like this big, and I'm a tall woman. So like my leg, it's like, I don't fit inside my bathtub. It's okay. Then you can do just do a foot bath, and you'll still get some benefits from that. So even if you can do a foot Epsom salt bath, that's great. There are other things in there like dry brushing. And does everybody know what a dry brush is? I talk about this so often at work. I have one right here. Let me get it. So it looks like this. You can get one with a handle. And there's lots of YouTube videos on how to dry brush, but basically you're going from the outside of your body inwards towards your heart, from the bottom to the top, and from out to in. And you're brushing in a very light, you're not scrubbing. It's a very light brush, quick. I do this before I shower. And I can tell you that if you do it in the wintertime, your skin's going to feel amazing. But it's like your shower's heating up, maybe you only do the top part one day, maybe you do the bottom part the next day, but this will help stimulate your lymphatic flow, and your lymph is part of your detoxification pathways. So this can help with that. And I got this like at the drugstore. It was $5, not expensive. The other thing you can do is castor oil packs. You can get castor oil on Amazon. I bought a fancy pack that you put the castor oil right over your liver, which is underneath your right breast or right chest. And then you put this wrap around and then apply heat. And that allows for the liver to help pull out the toxins. So that's another way that you can support yourself during detoxification. We'll talk more about that next week, when that should really be what we're have going on. Okay, let me look at my notes. 1 minute, please. Okay, so for those of you who are giving up coffee and you're kind of a little bit nervous, you're like, I am going to give up coffee. I have a coffee problem. And, we live in the Starbucks land. So maybe some of us are like a little bit more involved in our coffee than we should be. There are 3 different products that I can suggest that will help you in that transition. The first one is called Dandy Blend. And this is a dandelion root and chicory root type of powder. And you follow the directions. Because don't do what I did. I was like, well, I really like dark coffee. So if it says 1, I'll put 2 in. No, gross. Don't do 2, just 1 tablespoon. Follow the directions. Much better if you just do 1. So Dandy Blend. There's another company called SIP, SIP Herbals, and they make a coffee substitute, and they actually have ones with flavors in them. So be careful there. Choose one that doesn't have any sugar or anything added. Read the labels. If those don't serve you and that's not working, there's a product called Teeccino, Teeccino, and it's a kind of like a tea bag, but it's a coffee that kind of gives a coffee flavor. Those can be good substitutes while you're making that transition, because some of us, it's the action of just the warm beverage in the morning. You know, we feel like we need to do that, so you can make that transition. You do want to be mindful about supporting that detoxification. So don't be surprised when you don't feel good, like kind of expected. And if you make it through the first week unscathed, and woo, yay for you. But just, you know, be ready and be like, oh yeah, she said there'd be days like this. And we will get through it. For most people, the detoxing period will last between 5 to 7 days. And that second week is when people really start to feel good, or better, I should say. All right, let me get over to the questions. Okay, are berries, nuts, and veggie things we could eat for snacks, or should we stick to the meal? The snacks? No, yes, that's a great question. So Kylie's asking if we wanted, if somebody just wanted to do berries, nuts, and veggies for snacks, that's great. You go ahead and do that. You do not need to make the snacks in the meal plan. If you looked at those and you're like, no, that's not my thing, that's okay. But remember that we do want to give our body that break between meals if we can. So you should, if you're not going to follow those recipes and you're getting hungry in between, that's something we can problem solve around, and we might want to increase the healthy fats. So you could lean a little bit more into the nuts. But the thing about nuts is that you don't get a whole lot of them. So you don't get a full feeling, even though they have a lot of energy associated with them. So fats live in the body for 4 hours, protein lives in the body 3 hours, and carbs live in the body 1 hour energetically. And at the cellular level, the food stays with us 3 days. So you will be in the full-on cleansing food thing on Thursday. If you start tomorrow, Thursday is going to be the first day that your body is without anything that it hasn't had or that you ate before. The winter quinoa, yeah, made a ton. Share with your friends, Kathleen. Are there specific foods that help with sleep? Yes, there are. There is a food list. I actually have that in a different document, and I'm happy to share that. I'm make a note. Yeah, sleep is really important. You should be protecting your bedtime. You try to go to bed at the same time if you can. And if you're having trouble sleeping, we can put in a little bit of like melatonin. The Epsom salt baths really do help with that. So there are some things that we can do to help increase sleep if after we kind of go through the first 3 or 4 days, or I say it by day 5, if things aren't starting to turn around in the area of sleep, we can work on that a little bit. Where can I find the food list and a copy of this plan? So the food list is inside the guidebook. And so inside your client portal, let me pull that up so everybody sees where that's at. One moment while I hop over there. I lost you guys. There we are. Okay, hang on. Can go over there. Okay, so your client portal should be here. You'll see all of our sessions listed on the right. And then if I click on this 21-day cleanse, and I'm here, there's a module and it says program materials. And so I can go to view that, and that's where all the materials live. Did that answer your question? Lucky number 13. Melissa's asking, I don't eat breakfast. Is that okay during the next 3 weeks? Absolutely. If you would like to do intermittent fasting, that's fine. And we actually, you'll have, if you've been someone who's done intermittent fasting in the past and you have experience with it, there is a little flush that we can do in the second week that you might want to participate in. It's not for first-time cleansers. So that's not something that everyone should jump on, but you definitely can participate in that if you have been doing fasting. What is your take on vitamins during detox? So I think it's important to support the body while we're going through detoxification. So if you have a good multivitamin, I would recommend taking it, especially one that has enough minerals associated with it. Minerals are our spark plugs in our body. Think of if you have gas in your car and an engine in your car and all the parts of the car, but the spark plug is missing, you're not going to turn over the engine. And so we really do need those nutrients onboarded. I don't often, say, here, take this vitamin, but if you or somebody, or you're coming into the cleanse and you're like, I really want a high quality multivitamin, I can set you up in the dispensary and I can make a suggestion for you. And you'll just want to message and say, hey, that's me. I want that. I want to get that support. So I just put it in the feed there. If we're doing I'll say this, if you are doing a true water fast and a true pulling everything out, you wouldn't take any supplementation at that time, but we're not doing that here. Our goal is to move the needle, not necessarily completely go into cellular autophagy. Any other questions? There is a way to private message me. Let me show you how to do that. So up here in this, at the top of your box, there's this little chat right here. If you do that, you will find a messaging system. I'm not going to open mine up because it probably has messages for me in there. And I don't want to open up that on here, but that's how you can message me directly and not the group. But if it's a group style question, make sure, if it's private and you're like, I'm having blowout diarrhea and I didn't really want to post that in the group and I'm not comfortable talking about my bathroom habits, then, or I've been constipated for 4 days and I feel like I'm 9 months pregnant and what can I do? Okay, yeah, then message me separately. But if it's, someone asked, I don't really care for quinoa, can I have rice instead? It's well, that's a really great question for the group. So if it's something that's more group related or food related, then post it over there. But I totally understand not wanting to necessarily tell everybody everything. All right, any other questions? Mo, I see you're hopping on here a little bit late, but I have recorded this, so you'll have an opportunity to go back and watch it, just so you know.
So Andrea,
yeah,
I know 100% I'm going to get a bad headache if I just stop coffee, like cold turkey.
Yep.
Would it, is it okay to do kind of less the first day, rather than just cold turkey tomorrow?
Yeah, you could do a taper if you wanted to. So if you're someone who's been drinking 8 cups of coffee and you go to 4 tomorrow, and then you go to 2, and then you go to 1. I know you're not doing on this, but
close to it, actually.
I know it's hard, the coffee, it can be really hard for people. The other thing that you need to be super conscious and aware of is that if you have to drink water. All of your blood is dependent on how well the flow of your blood is dependent on how well hydrated you are. And if you're not drinking enough water, then the blood flow is compromised. And we want good blood flow because that's how the toxins are going to get mobilized and moved up to the liver to come out through the stool and urine. And you might find and you can let me know, if you were in the second week, you're like, I'm getting weird rashes on my body. What's that about? That means that the liver was overwrought with stuff and it couldn't handle all of the things that were coming through. So it just starts pushing it out through the skin. Again, Epsom salt baths. Tim, that's a great question. Tim asks, how much water should we drink? You should be drinking about half of your body weight in ounces. Do not exceed 100 ounces, however. Okay. And if you're someone who's was only drinking like 10 ounces before, please don't go up to 100 ounces. If that's what your number is, slowly increase over a period of time. Otherwise, you'll be in the bathroom. And be a water sipper, not a water drinker. And what I mean by that is sip on water all day rather than drinking like a big glass and another big glass. Your body can only absorb so much. It's about, on the average, don't hold this to me, but it's about 4 ounces every 15 minutes. So when we drink a big glass of water, that's great. Your body's going to take in about 4 ounces of that. But if you're continually doing that in an hour period of time, you're just going to be in the bathroom. So you'll know if you're pushing too hard if you're in the bathroom more than once an hour. Okay. And I will say this, if you get constipated and it's been more than 48 hours, you have to message me, and because we want the toxins to leave. And if we've got stool backed up into your colon, then we're not getting rid of things. So we want to make sure we're going to the bathroom every day. You should be pooping 1 time a day at the very minimum. And if that's not happening right now, you need to message me, and we need to get you moving. That's really important. Your poop is important. It's important to me. I told my church I wasn't going to talk about poop, but I lied. We will be talking about poop. Just a little bit, I promise. All right. Any other questions tonight? Don't be shy. You can type into the chat too if you have any other questions. You don't have to unmute. Okay. Well, I won't sit there and stare at you, and I promise not to sing. That's not my thing. If you have questions, you can post them in the feeds. If it's private, you can private message me. And then we will see how things go, and we'll meet back here next Sunday. And next Sunday, we'll talk about what's coming up for that following week of taking the protein out, and then maybe even share what we experienced. If you're like, oh, that was really encouraging. I'm glad that I did that, and this is something cool that happened. Be looking for the little things, because it's the little things that add up to the big things in the end. So,
Andrea, I do have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
So we have not had time to prep for tomorrow. So if I were to run to the store tonight to get some things just to get through tomorrow,
yep.
What do you have do you want to message me maybe some things I should just focus on? So
I would print out if you're just going to do something, I would print out that list of page 14, which is from the guidebook that tells you the foods that you can eat. And then I would just keep it simple. Salad, veggies.
So we don't have to follow that meal plan for Monday necessarily tomorrow.
Nope.
Okay.
Mm-mm. And if you're like, oh, I didn't have time to prep and I'm probably not going to get all that done until Wednesday, well, then you start on Wednesday, right? I think that we have to give ourselves permission to be a little bit squishy here, because, some people might be like, yeah, I had all weekend to do all these things and I'm ready to go. And other people might be like, yeah, I'm not quite there yet and I need another day. That's fine. That's fine. Take your time. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll hop off, and we will meet next week. And I'm here for you for support, but you got to reach out. I'm not a mind reader. All right.
Andrea,
Yeah.
Andrea, can you hear me? I'm sorry. I just got back into cell coverage, and so I'm late. And I was wondering if I could access the recording of
Yes.
the
Yes.
meeting of the person I missed.
Yes,
Okay.
I will post the recording inside the group, so you guys will have access to it. And
Great.
it will probably be tomorrow morning that it gets posted, because it takes a
Great.
little while to convert and all of that. All right.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Thank
All right,
you.
Bye.